Tonight, our special transmission as International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor faces criticism at the United Nations Security Council. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Today is the 222nd day since Israel started attacking Palestinians indiscriminately. Defying international appeals, Israel has intensified military operations in Rafah. Israeli forces have penetrated into densely populated areas in northern Jabalia and southern Rafah. The troops are facing fierce resistance. In the past 24 hours, a surge of Israeli airstrikes have killed 82 Palestinians in Gaza. Palestinian Health Ministry reports separate strikes have killed 4 Palestinians in Jabalia and Burej refugee camps. In Gaza City, air attacks are targeting civilian areas. A United Nations facility has been targeted. Strikes on apartments have killed 10 displaced Palestinians. The Hezbollah militant group in Lebanon has launched 60 rockets into northern Israel, causing minor damage. The death toll from Israel's war continues to rise. At the time of writing, at least 35,173 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli attacks. A revised report by the United Nations reveals another 10,000 civilians are buried under the rubble. 79,061 have been injured. Israel's revised death toll stands at 1,139. Israel stands accused of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The top court has ordered Tel Aviv to ensure its forces do not commit acts of genocide and guarantee humanitarian assistance is provided to civilians in Gaza. The United Nations reports recent Israeli assaults have displaced over 500,000 people. More than 100,000 civilians have fled from northern Gaza. Nearly 450,000 have evacuated from Rafah in southern Gaza. UN Chief Antonio Guterres condemns Israel's actions. Guterres says there is a need to protect civilians. He is calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. The Palestinian Authority says 80% of Gaza's health centers are currently out of service. Israel and Egypt are engaged in a blame game over the closure of the Rafah crossing. The crossing is a crucial passage for aid delivery. Israel has shifted responsibility to Egypt. It is urging Egypt to reopen the crossing. Israeli Foreign Minister Katz is seeking international support to pressure Egypt. On the other hand, Egypt is blaming Israel for the crisis. Egypt accuses Israel of blocking aid with its ongoing military operations in and around Rafah. International aid agencies are warning of a famine in Gaza as both Rafah and Kerem Shalom crossings remain closed, effectively isolating the enclave. Prior to the closing of the 2 crossings, the United Nations had warned that Gaza is on the brink of famine. Today is Nakba Day. 76 years ago, more than 750,000 Palestinians were displaced to pave the way for the creation of Israel. Israelis celebrate it as the Day of Independence. An Israeli settler has raised the Israeli flag within the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound on Nakba Day. Extremist settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa compound. One of them raised the flag right in front of the golden dome of the Al-Aqsa Mosque before being halted by Israeli forces. Palestinians condemned the act as part of Israel's effort to erase Arab Islamic identity. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is the Islam's 3rd holiest site. Non-Muslims are banned from worshipping in the mosque's premises. However, settlers have gained access to the compound since 2003. They often trespass the mosque and engage in provocative actions. Israel's annexation of East Jerusalem in 1980 remains unrecognized internationally. The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has faced strong criticism from United Nations Security Council members on Tuesday for not issuing arrest warrants for those responsible for massacres in the Gaza Strip. Karim Assad Ahmed Khan was grilled by the Libyan envoy, Algeria's deputy ambassador, and the Russian ambassador. The Libyan envoy denounced Khan for not issuing the warrants. He said the world wants to see the top court to hold accountable those involved in the mass graves, mass crimes against children, and genocide. He said the world expects the top court to be courageous and to issue arrest warrants for Israeli officials who repeatedly commit genocide against Palestinians. Algeria's deputy ambassador stated that his country rejects pressures exerted by certain countries and powers on the court's officials. He said it is very important that the rule of law prevails. He said that he is expecting the top court to take a serious approach to the situation in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories. The Russian ambassador drew attention to the fact that the top court has not taken any action on Palestine since 2015. He questioned whether there is a connection between the non-action and the U.S. Congress's call for sanctions if the court investigates individuals from the U.S. and allied countries. He described the court as a puppet body. He then asked who controls the remote. Israeli officials have admitted to manipulating the results of Eurovision through propaganda. Eurovision is an international song competition organized annually by the European Broadcasting Union. Israeli singer Eden Golan secured fifth place in the contest, largely driven by audience televoting. Initially, Israeli officials touted the results as evidence of global support for its war in Gaza. It was later revealed that the Israeli Foreign Ministry had orchestrated a campaign urging supporters to vote for Golan. This effort included multilingual appeals, YouTube ads, and social media pushes. This same message was reproduced by numerous Israeli officials across the globe. Israel's UN ambassador, its deputy chief of mission in Latvia, and Israeli deputy ambassador to the Philippines appealed for support for Golan from official Twitter accounts. Despite these efforts, Golan was not able to make it to the top 3 spots. A recent Angus Reid Institute poll has unveiled that 81% of Canadians consider university campuses as acceptable sites for protests. This statistic aligns closely with public support for protests in other prominent locations, such as city halls, embassies, and public squares. The poll was conducted among 1,707 Canadian adults. It highlights our growing sentiment of tolerance towards campus activism. Recent events, including encampment-style protests at institutions like McGill University, have sparked discussions about the boundaries of acceptable protest behavior. 30% of respondents advocate for unrestricted campus protests, while 44% suggest implementing a 50-meter buffer zone between protesters and designated locations. Only 13% of participants consider university protests as outright illegal. The results show attitudes towards protests vary across demographics. Younger respondents express a greater acceptance of protests compared to older demographics. However, there are clear lines drawn. Majority oppose protests at locations deemed highly sensitive, such as abortion clinics, hospitals, and private residences of public figures. Political affiliations also play a role in shaping views on protests. The results show notable differences between conservative, liberal, New Democratic Party, and Bloc Québécois voters regarding the acceptability of protests in different settings. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.